Welcome to the Unsecurity podcast. Each week, Evan and Brad give an inside look at current information security news, breaches, best practices, and other things you should know to improve your information security. Here are your hosts, FRSecure's Evan Francine and Brad Nye.
Welcome, listeners. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Unsecurity podcast. This is episode 122. The date is March 10th, 2021. And joining me is somebody new. It's Ryan Cloutier. How you doing, Ryan?
Doing good, Evan. How about you?
I'm doing well, too, man. It's good to have you on the show again. You've been here a couple times. Brad couldn't join us this week. He's just got a ton of stuff going on. So I'm happy that you're here. How you doing?
Doing really great, man. Glad to be here. Thanks for having me back. I always enjoy when I get to spend time talking with you and hanging out. It's always fun and enjoy, doing different things with you, podcasts and stuff. So glad to be able to be here tonight with you and excited for what we're going to talk about.
Right. And so you mentioned tonight. So this is different. Normally we're recording these things on Tuesday mornings. Brad and I get up at 7. You're not a morning guy, and I don't fault that at all. I like to think of it as kind of shift change, right? You work late. I get up early. We kind of got the whole day covered between the two of us. But it is night, and it is a Wednesday night as opposed to a Tuesday morning. It took us a little while to get ourselves coordinated, but here we are, man. And I also like talking with you, by the way. We do our shit shows every Thursday night, so anybody who's listening, Thursday night we do those live. It's me, Ryan, and Chris Roberts. And we talk about all kinds of cool things. Tomorrow we're talking about the tool fool, right? This is where people seem to continue to buy tools and don't necessarily know how to use them. Will be a great conversation tomorrow. You and I are always on that stuff, but this is the first time I think you and I have tag teamed on the Unsecurity podcast.
Yeah, I think it is. I think when I've been on before, I've been a guest. Actually, it kind of takes me back. The first time I was on was over a year ago, and I think we weren't even working together at that time. So it's been fun to watch this develop too. As one who actually does listen from time to time to the Unsecurity podcast, it's kind of cool to be able to do that and have it on the Spotify, but also get a chance to be on it. Although I will admit I generally don't listen to my own episodes, but
yeah, I can honestly say I've never listened to an episode of the Unsecurity podcast. I hate hearing my voice. I don't know what it is. So there you go. If I sound funny, you're going to have to tell me, because I'm not going to figure it out myself.
Well, usually there's some kind of background noise. You like to do an adventurous life, so.
Well, that's a good segue, because right now, we do this. The first part of the podcast is usually just us catching up, right? So now, today I'm down in Daytona for Daytona Bike Week. People don't know I love riding Harley Davidson motorcycles, and, kind of that culture. And so I'm sitting on the deck, and I can see the ocean. It's like just over there. You might hear in the background, Harley guys like to rev up their motorcycles. I don't know if you do that. So you might hear that from time to time. But I'm down here just kind of catching up on some rest. You sort of kicked me out, I think, for a week. I'm not supposed to be working, so that's what I'm doing down here.
Well, vacations are good. They're important.
Yeah. So what have you been doing since I've been gone? And what's been going on in the home front?
Doing a lot of awesome stuff to help the mission and really serve, my passion area. It's K-12. And so been strategizing and working with other organizations and companies that are complementary to what we do. Looking for opportunities to really help. And actually I had a great conversation today with a partner of ours about a scholarship opportunity for K-12 to try to help them be able to leverage, some security help and resources, consulting, advising, different services. And that seems to be a concept that's got a lot of traction behind it. So I'm just, you know me, man. I like to help inspire others that we work with to step up and do more to help out. And I've done a lot of that this week, and so it's been really fulfilling for me.
That's cool, man. And you mentioned the mission, right? And we say all the time around here that mission before money. And the mission really is to fix the broken industry. And what that means is making security attainable for everybody. Right? We all have a role to play in information security. So what's your role? What are you doing? Whether it's as a parent, leading your children, leading your household, whether it's a school administrator, leading a school, protecting students, protecting the community, whether it's, a business leader. We all have a role, even as a child, and as a kid. What are the rules? What are the things I'm supposed to be doing on my iPad or my iPhone, right? So this mission of ours is huge, and I love working on it with you because I know in your heart, this is what we do, right? It's all about mission.
Well, it is. And to that point, one of the fun things that we've been able to work on recently has been building a coalition of folks that are also wanting to help out and putting some structure around that, and we landed on a name, and I love it. The Gray Matter Society. I'm really, really excited about that. I've actually spent a lot of time this week thinking about that and starting to make some initial calls to some folks that I want to invite. It's just really cool. And so for the listeners, the concept is that security professionals and non-security professionals coming together to focus on and solve some of the most challenging problems, and doing it in a way that's going to promote the highest chance of success. So not trying to focus on too many things at once, but being very narrow in the focus and really working the problem to completion. And I think that part of it really solidified it from just kind of a neat idea. Like, wouldn't it be nice if to something more concrete that really does feel achievable? So I'm pretty stoked about it.
Yeah, man, I am too. This is one of the things that came from the shit show. It came from, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 weeks ago. I think I was on another, air quotes, vacation, where I was actually working a lot down there. But it was, we talked about a problem in our industry where I think I posed a question: what's the most significant, or what's the root cause of all security problems? And it led us down this path of, well, it's people. Well, okay. That's sort of a cop-out answer. What is it about people? Because a lot of times in our industry, we look at people as those people, right? Not me. I'm not part of the problem. They are. Well, right. No, that's not true. You are also part of the problem. And so as we got talking through it, I think we realized that the problem is really not as difficult, not as complicated to solve as we might think it is. But we don't do it because I think we have so many competing motives, right? You've got money, right? Everybody wants to make a dime. Everybody wants to make money. We've got political motives where, left or right, I come from this angle and I want you to solve it this way so that it satisfies my constituents as opposed to yours, which I don't really care about. We want to create this gray matter society where it's not about politics. It's not about money. It's not about fame. It's about, let's solve the damn problems and make life better for everybody. Right? And that's the part that jazzes me, man, because we can do this. We just have to come together. We have to solve these things together. And I think we can.
I really do. It's going to be good. And it really is that coming together piece that's so important. And some of this will develop as we get into the meat of our topic tonight. But I think it just empathy, right? It's all rooted in that empathy for your fellow human, for society. And I think as long as that's the driver behind folks participating in this, I think it's going to be wildly successful.
Yeah, I agree. And so for people, stay tuned for this, right? You'll start hearing about it more and more. This might be the first time you've ever heard about it, the Gray Matter Society. or maybe you heard us mention it somewhere else. But this is going to become a thing where we're going to recruit anybody to participate. Some of the biggest names in our industry will be part of this, as long as they have the right motives, right? We do have people in our industry who don't have the right motives. They won't be invited.
Right.
We won't tolerate that. This is about serving society, not about serving an individual person. So yeah, that'll be sweet. That'll be awesome, man. But you mentioned our topic for tonight. It's our topic for tonight, and we've talked about it before. We've talked about it on the Shit Show. We've talked about it here on the Unsecurity podcast. It's mental health. And specifically, the reason why this comes up again is yesterday, both you and I and a number of leaders from the companies that we work for, we went through this training. It's called the Mental Health First Aid, MHFA, certification training. It was 4 hours. I learned a ton, and I wanted to share it with our listeners. I think it's relevant to the jobs that we do. If you're a human being, you struggle with this one way or another, right? Whether it's today, whether it's tomorrow, sometime in your lifetime, more than half of us will struggle with a mental health disorder. So what are we going to do about it?
And I'd add to that too, for the half that aren't struggling, you'll still deal with it because you are going to be interacting with a colleague, a coworker, a family member, a loved one, a spouse, etc., who is going to be struggling with it. And I think that for me was a awesome part of this learning was having some new tools about how to talk about it, and I guess talking about it directly was the thing that was most eye-opening. I think we have a tendency as people to talk around this subject, to soften the language, to maybe be hesitant to ask, very blunt and direct, respectfully, obviously, but very blunt and direct. How are you doing? And are you having thoughts of suicide? I thought that was a very important call out.
Yeah, I do too, man. The quote of the day that I put in the chat was, the more you talk about suicide, the fewer people
die. Yeah, and it's true. It's absolutely true, right? And I think a lot of that is rooted in the stigma aspect. And so, I'm just glad we're able to talk about this tonight, because this is what we do to help fix this, or to help create the necessary bridges for people to get the help they need, right? Is by having an open, honest dialogue and not shrinking away from it, not being afraid to talk and use the word suicide, to say, to ask somebody point blank, are you thinking about killing yourself, not hurting yourself? And as we learned in our class, those are very different things. They don't necessarily see the action of killing themselves as being an action of hurting themselves. So you have to use the right language. And I think that's just so important. And just being honest about how you feel, with yourself. I thought the self-care piece is so important for those in our industry.
Yeah.
I think we all could do a better job of self-care.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and the thing that hit me, and you were there with me, and as were 13 other people, we had 15 people, which was the maximum class size. We had a bunch of people that we had to turn away. So we'll probably do more training. Where we work at FRSecure and Security Studio, we take this stuff very, very seriously. We don't want anybody to suffer unnecessarily with any mental health disorder, any struggle in life. We also learned that the average time period between somebody struggling with depression or, suicide contemplation is 10 years, right? There was that 10-year span where people suffer before they either get help or, sadly, they do take their own life, or they do end up getting, worse to where it's a medical issue. I mean, it's worse than it. I mean, just that 10 years of suffering really hit home with me.
Yeah. Well, the comorbidity, right? That jumped out to me is during this 10 years that there's that whole comorbidity aspect of mental health that can affect your, heart condition, right? We talked about anxiety and panic attacks and how symptom wise, if you don't know what's going on, it can look and feel a lot like a heart attack. Externally to people observing it, it can look and appear to be like a heart attack. And the fact is, as you go through it, you do experience that accelerated heart rate, that increased blood pressure, those things that if you are susceptible to a heart attack or a heart condition could then potentially exacerbate it. So it isn't just strictly that mental health. That was a big takeaway for me as well, is this is a key component of overall physical health.
Yeah, good point. And then we talked about, suicide, obviously, depression, anxiety was another thing that was talked about. Panic attacks, how to deal with those things, how to be the person that can be connected to somebody and offer that support that they need at the time they might need it, right? Not shying away, not feeling embarrassed about talking about these things openly, fighting the stigma. And the reason why I think this is really important to us in our industry is it's easy for us to become isolated. I don't know if you've ever struggled with this, but anybody who's not in my shoes doesn't understand what it's like to be in my shoes. And so I feel like nobody gets me. Nobody understands what I'm struggling with. And so I can easily retreat, isolate myself. And if I don't have good friends, if I don't have somebody there who's going to say something to me, like, hey, man, are you okay? Can I help you? I care about you. I love you. We don't hear that enough in our industry. It's easy to fall down that slope, and I don't want people to do that.
Yeah, the empathy aspect, the connecting with your fellow human is so important, especially in this industry, because you're absolutely spot on. This is an industry where isolation it's to a certain degree encouraged. We hoard our secrets. We are the keeper of the secrets. And so we hide away in our little, cubby holes and put protectors on our screens, and everything we do is hush hush. And then, most likely we're under one or multiple NDAs at any given moment. And so, we have a culture of silence. We have a culture of we don't talk to each other. And then I know myself personally, and I'm sure you've experienced this as well, and probably the majority of listeners, I get stressed out about stuff like, man, why can't people change a password? Why is this so hard? Trying to convey the emotional stress that particular issue can cause me to a non-security person, they look at me like I'm on something. They're like, really? You're excited about this? I'm like, you don't understand. Like, if we don't change behavior, things get worse. This will be something that you will eventually care a lot about, but then it's too late. The horse has left the barn. So I'm over here waving the flag, trying to sound the alarm. And they're looking at me saying, why are you feeling that way? So it's hard to connect and get empathy outside of the industry if the thing, if one of the major stressors is, the work and the nature of the work we do.
Yeah, man. And I get and that's why I think it's so important for coworkers, other security people who, march down this path with me, because my wife doesn't understand it. My wife doesn't understand what it's like to be a security person, what it's like to care so deeply about somebody protecting themselves, protecting their family. These are things that, I don't know, I think many of us maybe obsess about. I mean, I know I do. I obsess about it pains me to see somebody suffer anywhere. I hate people suffering. I hate seeing people being taken advantage of. People don't get that outside of our industry. They don't get what I'm feeling. So I think having coworkers, people like you, people like the 13 others who took this training with me, having them march down this path with me and be able to hold me accountable or say, hey, man, something's off. What's going on? that can mean the difference between life and death for people, honestly.
It can. And that was another takeaway from the class was, that little interaction, that small investment of effort can be and is life-changing.
Yeah.
Totally. And life-saving. And you never know when somebody needs it. And the nice thing is about this, and I would advocate for anyone that's in a leadership position that has the ability to bring this into your workplace, please do so. You will learn a lot of things, and you will also learn the impact that not managing mental health in your organization ultimately has to your bottom line. It does affect your overall productivity. It affects your throughput, the quality of work that you're getting from your employees, the longevity of that employee. Unmanaged mental health generally leads to something not great. And I know, my personal story here in the last few weeks, and part of why I'm giving Evan so much guff about being on vacation is I started to hit a wall. I started to get to a point mental health wise where I was starting to go down the slope. I hadn't started the journey yet, but I sure as heck was right at the edge. And I knew that if I didn't do some self-care, if I didn't prioritize not worrying about work for a day, not, really just truly stepping away, not checking that email. I have that bad habit. I'm sure most of us do. The email comes to the phone and it's 9:00 at night and I ain't really doing much else at the moment. And ding, ding, it made a noise. I think I can just check it. And before I know it, I've answered 5 emails and I'm 3, quarters of the way through a slide deck that I shouldn't have been doing while ignoring something else that needed attention at that time.
Dude, that's such a great point. And I think this is what makes this episode it's deeply personal for me because I know the struggles. You and I have a great relationship. I deeply admire you. I love you. And I've said that many times. You say the same thing to me. And we've sort of stolen that word in our society. Like it means something that it's not. What it means is I care about you as much or more than I care about myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I will do whatever I can to help you when you're struggling with things. And to see you take that time off meant the world to me. And I look forward to the time when you can do that again. You also afforded me that same opportunity. And you made it known many times in team meetings, like Evan is not allowed email. If you see an email, you let me know. And sometimes you have to have that sort of intervention to keep people from burning out, to keep people from going off the edge. Because when you burn out, that's just the beginning of a bunch of really shitty things. Excuse my language. Burning out isn't the bad thing. It's the beginning of many bad things.
Right. And it is. And it's, and you saw some signs. This is even before we had the training. And I chalk this up to your empathetic nature as a human. You're just kind of more dialed in that way than the average bear. And so you could see there was some slippage in the gears. There was a little bit of, not getting the throughput that I could do. There's little micro things and you would make sure to check in. And because I'm very in touch with my own mental health, I was very vocal back to you. No, I'm not in a great place. No, things are not going. Now, another interesting point from yesterday is that at no point did I shirk my accountability while dealing with managing mental health. Those are not separate things. They are separate things. They're not the same thing here. You still must be accountable to the commitments that you've made, to the things that you said especially in the workplace. You've got to deliver what you say you're going to deliver. Now, because I was able to communicate with Evan and have an open dialogue, we were able to work together to find an appropriate time where enough things had been transitioned away that I could step away for that week and it not be disruptive to my colleagues. Right? Now, had I had a mental health emergency, well, sorry, got to prioritize myself first. But that's crisis mode. I was just dealing with generalized, mental health concern and just, I'm an ADHD person. I have that diagnosis I've had for years. And with ADHD comes, a bit of anxiety, a bit of depression. These are comorbidities, if you will, of the ADHD. And unfortunately, they kind of feed each other. So you do have to make that time. But if I didn't have the support, and this is the important point I'm trying to make, if I didn't have the support, I would not have felt as comfortable stepping away. And I would have had a lot of the concerns that most people do. Well, is this going to be viewed as weakness? Is this going to be viewed as something against me, less than? And when we're in these competitive environments, that matters. People worry about these things. So when you have a culture that says it's okay to not be okay, that doesn't mean it's okay to not come to work on time. That doesn't mean it's not okay to get your work done. But if you can have that dialogue, if you can promote that kind of environment, not only are you going to get better quality output out of your staff, but there's a loyalty component there. There's absolutely a loyalty component. If you truly care in my moment that I need that care, I'm less likely to feel alone and therefore continue down a negative slope. I'm more likely to be receptive to help because I'm already taking some from you. So now when you suggest that maybe I might need additional help to manage those issues, I'm more amenable to that. And at the end of the day, I mean, who doesn't like when they feel validated and important?
Right. No, you're good. Good stuff, man. This is a great conversation because, another thing that I struggle with, and I don't know if other people do too, but on the workload thing, the burnout thing, it's a trust thing too for me sometimes. I feel like if I just let go for a week or a day or a couple of days, will stuff fall apart? Can I actually disconnect from my phone, from my computer for a period of time and believe that the world won't end? I mean, that's a tough thing for me. I went through it with FRSecure. That company got to a point where it was mature enough to where I had a management team, but I still remember like it was yesterday, the first time I stepped away for a week. And I actually had anxiety. I had more anxiety not being there than I had when I was there because I thought it was going to fall apart. And then when I came back, it didn't fall apart. And I was like, all right, I can actually trust this thing. It isn't going to fall apart. So then the next time I took this time off, I didn't have the anxiety anymore. You know what I mean? It was like, sometimes you have to take this leap of faith to believe that it's going to be okay. Whatever okay is. I mean, what's the definition of okay? I don't know. What's the definition of normal?
Depends on who you're talking to.
Right?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting that you say that because I've always had the philosophy that if it falls apart when I've gone away, that's not good. Nothing should ever be single threaded. You should be able, as a healthy company, even if you're not mature, you should always be able to weather a 3 to 5 day window of any given employee not being around. And if you can't weather that.
But then you know what your mind tells you? This is what my mind tells me. Did I build a good company?
You know what my mind tells me? How much mess do I have to clean up when I get back? Right. Because as I came up in the corporate realm, anytime I took a vacation, I always came back to a steaming pile. It was like for that week or 2 weeks of vacation, everybody just went, whatever it is that we don't want to do, we're assigning it to him because he's not here to say no. And we're not going to do anything that he expected us to do while he was gone. So he still has to deal with it when he gets back. Now, I don't think that was maybe intentional, but that seemed to be the theme, right? And anyone I've ever talked to them that Monday, Tuesday after they come back from vacation and they're like, oh dear God, why did I ever why did I do this to myself? Right. I think that's part of our competitive, aggressive, workaholic type American work culture, which I also think is a contributor to the opportunity for mental health incidences to get worse. And if you're not addressing it early on, if you're not doing that self-care, if you're not taking that few minutes to stretch or get that run in or whatever that thing is you need to do, pet the dog, spend a little bit of time with your dog, petting its head, can be an amazing stress reliever. And if that's not working for you, then having a colleague around you who can observe and clearly see a change in behavior and reach out and say, hey, are you okay? Can I help? I'm here to listen. Do you want to grab a bite after work? Not here to solve, and I'm not here to fix. That was one of the really important things we learned. We are not, as certified mental health first aid folk, we are not diagnosing, fixing, or solving. That's not our role or purpose. That's what professionals are for. We're there to be a bridge to help that person know that they're not alone, which is so important, so important. So many of us feel so alone, even in groups. So touching on that, letting them know and listening with purpose, not listening to respond, not listening, and just kind of nodding along like a bobblehead, but truly listening. Just that act alone could be the deciding factor. That could be all that they needed to get through that moment and say, you know what, I'm grounded again. I'm back to a healthy place. So the more able you are to identify that, I think the quicker you can help people.
I love that, man. It's talking with you tonight after having that training yesterday reminds me of things that were mentioned, right? Because you just mentioned a really, really, really important point. There are times it's not time to fix things. There's times where it's just time to listen without judgment. Let people lay it on you, man. I mean, how often, I know for my own personal, and this is where I want to go next is just personal stuff. How therapeutic it's been for me to just lay it out there. This is what I'm feeling. I'm pissed off. I'm depressed. I'm whatever I'm feeling. And just to have somebody listen and love me. Don't fix it because you can't fix it. That's the thing. You can't fix it. So you trying to fix it just frustrates me more. Mm-hmm. I just want to hear. I just want you to know, and I want you to care. Show me you care. That's it.
Yeah.
Right?
And it improves the overall quality of your workplace. And, I bring this up, and Evan and I were talking about this before we started the episode. Isolation, right? Most of us have never, ever been this home this much. The amount of time, that we're spending working alone. I've started to do this accountability buddy thing where, I'll have a person in chat and we're just working. We're both working silently in different parts of wherever we are in the universe, but I know they're there and they know I'm there. And that helps me to feel more like I'm working in an office setting. Yeah, I was always in my cubicle doing my thing, and they were in their cubicle doing their thing. But there was just something about being together. And so with COVID and all the work at home stuff, mental health has never been more important to focus on. More people today are experiencing their, once in a lifetime or at some point in their lifetime, 1 in 5 of us, 1 in 2 of us over the total span of a lifetime will experience a mental health issue. And during COVID, I would say that maybe is even a little higher. So many people are struggling because of the condition of the environment, exacerbating those mental health concerns.
No, good point, man. It's definitely got worse. And I don't think we realize or will fully realize the impact for quite some time. We're starting to see some studies about teens, and because those are such formative years where you're forming so many social structures that help to form your identity.
Yeah.
Right? At the age of, I'm 50 years old. I pretty much have my identity. It's not going to change much. It's been formed since, early 20s at the latest. But that generation, sadly, is lacking a lot of that identity thing because they don't have that physical interaction with people. We rely on other people, believe it or not. No matter how individualistic you think you are, you rely on other people to form your identity to a large extent. They tell you things like, oh, you're good at that. Or you're not so good at that. Or, wow, I was really impressed with that. It's those things that you get as feedback from people that help to form, oh, you said I'm good at this. Well, I'm going to do more of that, right?
Right.
It's going to be interesting to see how that's going to, I think it just stresses more the importance of fighting the stigma, talking more openly about it. Because another thing that I learned yesterday was there's this misconception that if I talk about it more, I enable it more. So if I talk about suicide often or regularly, you might think that this is enabling or justifying or maybe pushing you towards such a behavior when the opposite is true. Right?
Yeah, that was an eye-opening thing, right? You cannot put the idea in somebody's head, right? That's the simplest way to say this. There is no amount of words that you can put together that is going to put the idea of someone committing suicide, someone taking their own life. You can't put that in their head. It's either there or it's not there. So by talking about it, you're not causing it, but you absolutely could prevent it.
Yeah.
That's the piece is no harm, right? It's a no harm thing. You're not going to cause anyone to kill themselves by asking them, are you thinking about killing yourself? But you can stop them by helping them to identify that, by helping them to, because, until it gets said out loud, sometimes it's not even real. And so by them saying, yes, I am thinking about that could be that moment that goes, wow, I'm thinking about that. I need to get help. And so having that conversation, being brave enough, and that's the other thing too, that we learn, you have to demonstrate some bravery. You have to be brave enough to have the uncomfortable conversation. And maybe we'll do another Thursday night show one of these days about this, but it seems like our lack of uncomfortable conversations has led us to a really weird place.
No, I agree, man. Well, and so let's bring this to relevance. So, because we could talk about mental health all the time, but unless it's relevant to me, I can discount it, right? Whatever. Mental health. Yeah, I know it's a big deal for you.
Right.
But here's the deal, man. I've combined, you and I have 45 to 50 years combined information security experience.
Yep.
And I'm going to tell you, the God honest truth. I have four people very close to me who are also in this industry who did take their own life. And it hurts. The world's not a better place. The world was a better place when they were in it. They struggled with different things. I struggle personally myself, and I'm not afraid to admit it, man, because if I know that if I admit it, that people will walk alongside me and help me to be better, to be more effective. I have this mission, right? This mission means everything to me professionally. I need people. I can't do this by myself. So I've struggled myself even recently. And, ADD has always been a thing for me. Squirrels everywhere, all the time. I've got 50 things right now, 60 things right now on my task list. They're all somewhere between 10 to 25% complete. Most people would be driven crazy by that. That's my happy place.
Right.
It's weird. Here's another thing that most people don't know is I have depression issues from time to time. And I don't know if it was just a moment in time or if it's something deeper or longer. But when I was in Cancun, when I was in Puerto Vallarta 4 weeks ago, my wife asked me one morning, "How'd you sleep last night?" I said, "I slept like shit." She goes, "What happened?" So I woke up in the middle of the night. I don't know why, but I was crying. I was sad. I was depressed. I sat on the deck for 3 hours, bawled my eyes out. And yes, I contemplated suicide. It is what it is. She said, "Well, what are you going to do about it?" I said, "Well, I'm going to get therapy. I don't want to be here again. Even if I'm fooled into thinking that I will never be here again, I could potentially be here again. And I want to have the tools to be able to combat that. I want to have the phone numbers to call, the people to talk to. Because what would be the next step beyond that night? I've never had it before. I've never had it since. And so, crap. What's the next step? The next step would have been to do what it is I was thinking about doing.
Right.
And now I haven't shared that. I've never shared that with you. This is the first time you've heard this.
It is the first time I'm hearing it. And I first and foremost, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for being brave enough to talk about it. Thank you for not just sharing it with me, but, sharing this publicly. And you are doing the right things, right? It is talking to those that can help you. And I'm here for you and I will support you up to my ability. And then, and I'm going to advocate for, and now that I know, I'm going to help hold you accountable to making sure that you are getting that and doing that. And I can, and I've been there. It's been a very long time. But when I was a young man, I made an attempt on my own life as a young man. I had a lot of trauma, a lot of demons. Trauma, by the way, tends to be a big cause of a lot of this stuff. And we all got some kind of trauma. Promise. If you're brave enough to open the closet, you'll find it. It's there hiding. And so I know what that feels like to be in that moment. And I want to share with you that that moment can come and happen and go. And as long as you're aware and are doing the necessary things to stay aware of that, another day will come. The sun will rise. Things do improve. And this on a spiritual level, right? The day will come. The day will always come. The next day will always come. And so I love you, and I want you to continue to do the right things of talking about this, seeking help, making sure, that you, and I'm glad that you said that, followed up with, and I said, I want to go get the help I need. And that's the important part. It's making that effort to do that. The other thing we learned, and this is very relevant right now, is most mental health challenges and issues are resolvable.
Yes.
That they are resolvable. There is
very, 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 very treatable.
Strategies, medications, therapies. There's 101 ways to work through this stuff. And the majority of the time, 80+% of the time, there are long-term meaningful recoveries. You can, it's just like any other illness. That's the other thing we learned. So let's talk about stigma for a second, right? It's not that Evan is broken. That's not it. Evan has an illness that then, has symptoms And we wouldn't judge anyone for having cancer. We don't run around wagging our finger at cancer patients, telling them, shame on you and your tumor. You can think your way out of that tumor. You can, you can tough it out. You can push through it and magically the cancer goes away. We know that's not how it works, so we don't even go there. Matter of fact, you probably heard me, if you heard me say to a cancer patient, hey, shame on you for having cancer, you would probably all look at me like I was the worst person ever. But we do that with mental health. We make people feel bad or weak. Right. It's not
here's how I feel right now. I mean, number one, I'm grateful for my wife. She asked a seemingly simple question. How did you sleep last night? What it showed me was that she cared. She asked me because she cared. And so I felt comfortable telling her that I didn't sleep well. And then she asked me, well, why? Right? And I felt comfortable because there was a level of trust. Now I have somebody in my life, and you're another one. John Harmon is another one. Brad and I, who we do the Unsecurity, podcast, is another one. I'm very, 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 very blessed to have people in my life that I can share these things with that won't judge me, that will help me, right? And the reason why I'm sharing it is not because I want anybody's sympathy. I don't care. I don't want anybody's sympathy. I have the support I need. I truly do. The reason why I share it is because if this resonates with you, call me. Call Ryan. Call anybody. The lie is that nobody gives a shit. That's a lie. There are many, many, many people who do give a shit. Another lie is that the world will be better off without you. Another lie, the world will not be better off without you. I was going to talk about these 4 men that I lost in my life in this industry. These are security people that I lost, and the world is not a better place for them without them. Sorry. One was, Robbie. Every talk I give, I mention Robbie. I miss Robbie. It was the one part in the conversation yesterday in the training where I did start to cry, because this is a man who had so much potential. He was a beautiful, beautiful human being. I have no idea what God was going to do in his life. I have no idea how God was going to use him to help other people. What I know is that Robbie had a beautiful heart. Robbie was just an amazing person. And he bought into the lie somewhere. He bought in that nobody cared. He bought in that nobody would listen. And then you live with that guilt. And I'm gonna get faithy with you, but you know me, Ryan. That's cool.
Oh yeah, it's all good by me.
Right. So there's guilt and there's shame. I'm sorry, guilt and conviction. Guilt comes from Satan. Conviction comes from God.
Yes.
The reason why that's so important for me to remember is guilt tears you down. Guilt makes you beat yourself up. So when somebody close to you does take their own life, guilt is the thing that says, well, couldn't you have done something? Did you miss a sign? You might be to blame for this because you didn't step in when you should have stepped in. Those are guilt things. Satan, bad, lies. The conviction piece is, what can I do to be better? How can I help somebody else? Knowing what I know now, learning what I've learned. Is there somebody else that I can walk alongside to improve their life? Is there somebody that I can love that isn't being loved right now? Can I invest in a relationship with somebody? Because all of this comes down to relationships. When I look at somebody, and what I've learned in all of this is, I want to know your baseline. The only way I'm ever going to know your baseline is if I actually invest in you and learn you. Right? The only way I'm going to learn you is because I love you. Why would I give any time to you? So I want to know what's your baseline. And when I see a deviation from that baseline, why?
Right.
Why are you acting different than I remember you? Why are you acting different than the way you've always acted?
Right.
Did something happen? Are you feeling sad about something? Did you, and when you just ask that question, hey man, what's different? How are you doing? Because, and then give them an example. Give them an example like, normally you kind of behave like this. This is how I see you. Today I'm seeing you like this. Explain to me why the difference. Because one, that shows that I care. Two, it shows that you're going to have to now explain this to me. You have to give me a logical reason
why
this is different. You can't just blow it off and say, well, I'm just having a bad day. No, man, I've seen this for the last week. This isn't a bad day. Tell me more. And so, I don't know, man. I can preach about this because it really does hit home. I lost Robbie, which, the world sucks a little bit more without Robbie here. My buddy Justin, who was a partner at one time with FRSecure, took his own life, hung himself in the garage. Yeah, man. I mean, these are people that we need to do whatever we can. Now, I'm not going to live with the guilt. There are going to be more people who are going to commit suicide. That's just a fact of life. I won't feel guilty about it. I'll feel convicted about it. What can I do to help more, to love people more? Even like our buddy Chris Roberts, right? I'm not diagnosing him by any means, but I know his baseline now.
Right.
When I see a deviation from his baseline, I'm going to step in.
Yeah.
As a brother,
it's text. I mean, and the nice thing is, and anybody listening, if you don't have this in your life today, reach out. Okay. Reach out. Seriously. The three of us have an accountability system in place. We are all very aware of each other's mental health. We are all very aware of deviations in that baseline. And this is because we spend time checking in with each other. And when we don't hear from each other for a while, we check in with each other. Hey, how is it going? And we don't ask that of each other as a platitude. We ask that of each other because we genuinely want an answer. And if we get the blow-off answer, I promise you there's always the follow-up text. That's cool. Be more specific. And so, and I know having that serves as a bit of an anchor for the three of us. I know it does.
So two things, right? Two simple things that you brought up. Who are you checking in with? Who's checking in with you?
Yeah.
I mean, how far would that go to making life better for you and for other people? You know what I mean? Who are you checking in with? Check in with them regularly. Learn their baseline. What is their baseline? Invest in them enough to learn their baseline. That's love. Right? And then when you check in, if it's a deviation from that baseline, why?
Right.
There's a reason. Things don't happen without a reason. A computer doesn't do something without somebody telling it to do something. Same with people. People don't do something unless something motivated them, something changed to make them do something different than they were doing before. I have habits, right? I have good habits and I have bad habits. I stay sort of on that plane. But there are times when you'll call me and I'll be like, absent-minded, man. I'm just not paying attention to what you're saying.
Yeah.
Or you ask me how I'm doing and I say, fine, but it's not like, dude, I'm doing fine. It's more like, fine.
Yeah. And there's times when I know, just because I also live with the ADHD, I know I because of knowing your baseline, there are times when I know it's just ADHD rearing its ugly head, and it's not anything bigger than that. Right? But there are other times when, and in our relationship, I've tried very hard not to be afraid of holding you accountable to better behaviors, to checking in on that and keeping a check valve on that, right? And I'm going to continue to do that because I care, right? because that part's so important. And when we're talking about mental health in the workplace, it's no, you're probably not going to get to spend the amount of quality time with most of your coworkers and employees as the three of us get to spend with each other as friends. But you can still spend some time. I think I was in that training and I thought of a coworker of ours who shall remain nameless, who I know her and I have had multiple conversations over the time I've been with the organization about that very thing. How are you doing, really? And we've gone out and had some lunches where if you would have eavesdropped on the conversation, you just, wow, that's some heavy stuff they're talking about over there. But it was good for both of us. And it was a chance to just to connect on that level. And do I spend a lot of time with this person? No. But the time I do spend, I make it a point to make that time meaningful and not just surface BS, not just, oh, yep, everything's good. Yep. So one thing I want to make sure we call out, get your pens and papers ready because you want this phone number. This is the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. And it's 1-800-273-8255. 1-800-273-8255. You're not alone. If you can't get a hold of anybody, call that number. Someone will answer. They want to hear from you. They are interested in what you're dealing with, and they will help you to get the resources you need to make it through that mental health challenge and get up and fight another day.
Awesome, man. I love that. And they're trained. They're specifically trained to help.
Yeah, right? Absolutely.
So, and I want to encourage people too. One, put that phone number in your contact list, right? On your mobile phone. So get out your mobile phone and pause it if you have to, if it takes a little bit of time to do that. But put this, call it whatever, suicide hotline, call it whatever you want to call it. But put that as a speed dial so it's handy when you need it. So do that. And then, Ryan, say that number one more time so people can add it.
It's 1-800-273-8255.
So, man. And truly, if we save one life through all of this, through talking, through being open, honest, transparent with all of this, my God, is that not worth the world?
It absolutely is.
How much revenue do you need to make up for that?
Yeah, I don't know. You can put a number on it.
Exactly. Bingo. And I remember when Kevin, and again, I'm going the faith way. Kevin, who's a partner at FRSecure, we've had a lot of good conversations, but I remember the day he said to me, Evan, I've given my life to Christ. I was like, what? So then I remember praying this. If that was the point of all of this, great. Close the business. How many dollars would FRSecure have to make? How many dollars would Security Studio have to make to pay for Kevin's soul?
There's not enough dollars.
Right. And so that was the point. It helped you to put things into perspective. The same thing happens with mental health, right? It's dollars and cents, great. We use those things to do certain things, but at the end of the day, what's really important is the person behind it all. It's a human being. It's a human being that has dreams, that has desires, that has hobbies, that has motivations, whatever they have. Invest time in those people. It makes a difference. So anyway, I could preach all day about that stuff, man. This has been awesome, this conversation with you, because you and I have this level of, I think, relationship where it's more meaningful than just a talk about mental health, right?
Yeah, well, podcast aside, you're a good friend of mine. And
good friend of mine, brother.
I value real talk, right? As one who has dealt with mental health challenges before they were as acceptable as they are now, and we still have lots of room to go. It's the genuineness and authenticity. And if there's anything that is enviable or replicatable about anything you heard tonight, I hope it is the authenticity. It is the empathy. Your fellow human, if you're not there today, you will be at some point. So golden rule, pay it forward, however you want to say it, but taking that small moment to check in with somebody when you can clearly see their face says, I'm struggling here. I'm dealing with something. I'm in, strain, pain, whatever that is. That simple check-in, 30 seconds of your time could literally change their entire life. And who knows what they go on to do? Who knows what, maybe they go on to have a great kid that invents the cure for COVID. So let's do everything we can to keep our fellow humans here with us.
Love it, man. And so 2 other things that I want to leave people with. So you mentioned the phone number.
Mm-hmm.
Add that into, if you have to rewind and go back, add that into, even if you never use it, having it there when you need it is super important. So adding the suicide hotline to your phone is a really important thing. Also check with your work. What is our employee assistance program? What is the mental health component in that? Is there something? Should there be something? Go check. Call HR, right? Go talk to HR. What do we have? If I wanted to go get therapy, if I want to go talk to a therapist, how much is that going to be out of pocket for me? Right? Can I afford it? Get that stuff out of the way now so that when you need it, you know it.
Right.
Right? So that's another thing I would encourage you to do. The third thing that I would encourage you to do is to go check out the mental health first aid program. Bring it up to your HR. Bring it up to leadership in your organization. We spend so much time at work all the time, more time at work probably than we do at home in many cases. That means that I interact with people there, right? I need their help. I need them. If anybody's going to know the baseline of me outside of my wife, depending on my relationship with my wife, it's going to be my coworkers. So encourage management to go check out the mental health first aid certification. It was 4 hours, very, very, very well spent for me personally. So there's 3 things that I'm asking you to do. So that's that. Anything else to add about mental health before I get to just we'll brush through news super quick. I don't want to spend any time really on them. I just want them to know that we know, and you can go find out more.
Yeah, the last thing I'll say about mental health is the majority of time it is a recoverable thing. So don't think you're beyond help.
Never. As long as you got breath in your lungs, and a pulse in your heart, you're not beyond hope. There's time, right? Somebody can help you somewhere. All right, so let's get to some news real quick. Find it real here. I'm on my iPad, so weird. That's what you get. The first thing I've got is from the Register. So the title is Hacktivists Breach Verkada and View 150,000 CCTV cams in hospitals, prisons, a Tesla factory, even Cloudflare HQ. So did you see this, Brian?
I did, and what I found interesting in this is that, once again, a super admin credential, what appears to be belonging to a disgruntled employee, was not properly disabled, which then led to this. I didn't see anything in this that was a sophisticated attack or any kind of novel technique or anything like that. It really was credential based. So once again, the fundamentals get us.
Right. The basics, man. It's always the basics. And I agree with that. This is not sophisticated at all. This is default stuff.
Truly. I mean, they hijacked, if you're going to have a super admin account, please use privileged access management for it.
Right. Or how about we do security by design and we force you that as soon as you turn this thing on, you have to change this.
Well, yeah. And the issue that I saw was that it was the admin console that they use to manage these devices on behalf of these clients. And it didn't seem like they had really good privilege access controls around, those accounts and making sure that, when that what may have been a shared account, I don't know, that part hasn't come out yet, but clearly was a account that had not been deactivated after an employee termination. I mean, that kind of stuff, that's really important to do that.
And the reason why this is a big deal is this is great. So one, we've got numerous privacy violations. So imagine you being in a hospital and having a camera, and having other people view, these camera images of what you're doing in the hospital or why you're there, the time that you're there, what wing of the hospital you're in. You can deduce all sorts of things. It's a great intelligence gathering piece for future attacks. So this isn't like, oh, well, so be it. It's not a big deal. It is a big deal. We need to do better than this.
Yeah, absolutely we do. And, we'll see what the HIPAA lawsuits bring, but,
OCR is so damn slow, man. It could, for 5 years, 6 years, maybe.
Well, they'll get to it eventually, we hope.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, the second one I've got is from First Post. This is, the title is At Least 10 Hacking Groups Using Microsoft Software Flaw. So 10 different hacking groups are using the flaw in Exchange. So these aren't 10 different hacks. These are 10 different hacking groups. Many actual hacks here.
Oh, yeah. This is, I'm chalking this up to the ever-growing, what I'm coining the Microsoft mess. I think, we see this happening, and I've heard some pretty large and scary numbers about potentially number of impacted, Exchange servers worldwide. I think we're going to keep seeing this. I mean, Microsoft, had acknowledged a few weeks ago their source code had been, viewed potentially in its entirety. And so I'm not surprised to see this.
Brad Smith said that wasn't a big deal.
Oh, well, funny thing about cyber criminals and finding exploits in the source code that you can then leverage.
Right.
Yeah, I think this one, I think, stays with us for a while. I don't think they're going to be able to get rid of this as quick as they want. I think mainly because a lot of the organizations affected don't even have fundamental patch management structure in place. So to be able to react and respond, I think is limited. It's interesting as this article mentions, that Norway's parliament announced that they were, had data extracted in a breach. They haven't exactly said what that data is yet, but what I'm waiting to see what happens here is big governments have now been impacted by this. What's going to be the repercussion from this, if any?
Well, I guess my thoughts, along those same lines is don't think for a minute that there isn't a line to be drawn between this and SolarWinds and others. Right?
Very much interconnected.
Right. There's a correlation here, and we don't know the exact details because there's not that level of transparency, breach notifications and things in our country. That's one thing. The second thing is, I mentioned before in the Senate testimony that was given in front of the Intelligence Committee a few weeks ago. And I hope we don't go down this path of let's pile on more crap on top of this. Let's actually try to address the problem. The problem is over complexity in so many different areas. But I'm with you, man. This is not good. Last one I've got is kind of along the same lines. It's from Schneier on security. And, I'm not really too much, I don't know, maybe I am a fanboy. He has like the number one quote that I use, which is complexity is the worst enemy of security. So tons of respect for Bruce Schneier. But on his blog, he says, the title is more on the Chinese zero-day exchange or Microsoft Exchange hack. A great read. I'm not going to go into it right now. It's kind of along the same lines of what we've been talking about.
Yeah, and my main takeaway from this one is the 0 days, right? I think 0 days are going to keep rolling at a more aggressive pitch now than they have, I think, coming up to this time. And organizations, what I hope organizations take away from all this news coverage, if you will, is that things are speeding up. The attacks are becoming deeper in the environment, easier to execute, broader in scale, nation state, yada, yada, yada. And the number one defense is still the number one defense. The better you know your environment, the better you know what's going on, the faster you can cut off the bleed, the less likely you are to experience catastrophes. And businesses need to refocus back in on those basics. Are we controlling privileged access? Do we even know what's on the network? When's the last time something was patched? If you spend all the money that you're spending everywhere else on just those activities, you'd reduce your risk footprint by over 50%.
Amen. Amen. Preach it, brother. Woo woo. Woo woo. All right. Well, that's good. We're going to wrap it up. Seriously, great talk, man. This was almost like it was ordained. This was the right time for us to have this talk. And I'm hoping that there's a listener out there who gets I needed to hear this, or I know somebody who might be struggling. I can help. I can step up. And I don't have to feel intimidated about talking about difficult subjects. So awesome, man. I couldn't have been better, in my opinion. So thank you.
Well, thanks for having me on.
You got any shout outs for this week? Normally we do shout outs at the end of the show. Anybody who comes to mind right away, I want to give a shout out to.
I want to give a shout out to Brad. I know he's busy. I know he's busy doing his thing, but I want to give him a shout out and give a shout out to my buddy Bob.
Nice. I have funny. I'm going to send you pictures tomorrow. I bought 2 T-shirts. Actually, Bob bought a T-shirt, and I bought a T-shirt. I'm going to send you a picture of it. I think you'll find it funny.
Nice.
It's not fluid.
Speaking of T-shirts, when you get back, I still have yours from Christmas. I have
That's funny, man.
Give it to you Christmas in July at this point. Jeez.
Right? Well, I have a shout out for, I'm going to give a shout out to the security studio team. I'm going to give a shout out to you for stepping up, taking care of things, being accountable, holding me accountable. That's very, very important. I need that. Every leader, I don't give a shit, excuse my language, I don't care how tough, how powerful, how strong, how smart you are, because I've conquered many mountains.
Mm-hmm.
You still need somebody to hold you accountable. And the only way they're going to be able to do that is if you're transparent and if you're vulnerable. So go ahead and be vulnerable. So I want to give a shout out to you. And I also want to give a shout out to, Justin. I want to give a shout out to Justin Colbert. He's somebody at Security Studio who pounds the phones all the time. Such a great advocate for our partners. bought in 100% to our mission. We just had a really good, I think, victory today. So shout out to him, man. I really dig him.
Absolutely. He's doing really good.
Yeah. So much love to that too. Closing. So thank you to all listeners. Send us things by email if you feel so inclined. unsecurity@protonmail.com. Honestly, we check it once every couple of weeks, but that's Brad's fault, not mine. Just saying. Otherwise, socialize with us on Twitter. I'm at Evan Francine. Brad is at Brad Nye. Ryan is at Cloutiersec. It's CLOUTIERSEC. Did I do that?
You did. You spelled it right.
Hell yeah, and it's almost 1 o'clock in the morning here, so thank you, Evan. Other Twitter handles. We always struggle with the post. Honestly, every single time. Other Twitter handles where you can find some of the stuff we do. Unsecurity, obviously, is at UnsecurityP. Security Studio is at Studio Security. And FRSecure is at FRSecure. That's it. We'll talk to you next week. Thanks.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Unsecurity Podcast. We value our listeners and would love to hear from you. Give us your feedback by emailing us at unsecurity@protonmail.com. That's UNSECURITY@PROTONMAIL.com. Be sure to tune in next week to hear the latest insights from Brad and Evan.